Is Monday, November 13th, 2017. This is MMA Junkie Radio Show's pre-show, the show before the show. To my left is the MMA analyst for MMA Junkie Radio, Dan Tom. Back in New York, the best producer on the planet, Danny Okers. From an undisclosed location in Enterprise, Nevada, Gorgeous George. And I am Goes. How's everybody's weekend?
Good. Can't complain.
Oh, you can complain. I don't like when people say they can't complain.
I suppose I could, but don't want to I don't want to make you guys sour or anything like that.
Oh, what are you, a complainer?
So I'm just trying to be upbeat and positive. Great weekend of fights. Norfolk delivered, in my opinion, and the fall. I keep saying it. The fall's my favorite season because of all the other sports that either culminate or. Like baseball, their season ends in the fall or begin in the fall, like football and Premier League soccer, which is what I enjoy watching. So,
You happy about the 49ers, Coach?
The 49ers got the first win. Did you guys see the way they celebrated in the locker room? Like they had just won the title. But you know what? I liked it. It was geeky. Any other team has any right to bag on us? Hey, what the fuck? It's just a win. But it just goes to show you how much the win meant. For one, it's the first win for the coach. So the players were happy to win it for the coach. The coach finally gets to give his post-game speech, and talk about the good stuff rather than everyone hanging their head. And
you get Chipotle out of it too, right?
No, I bet the Giants.
Oh,
so you go.
What?
Yeah, remember the whole point was the irony in the bet was I took the Giants and yeah. It goes. Did Ford ever bring us Chipotles or me Chipotle? Do you remember within the last 6 months?
No, what he did was I think he gave you money. He gave you like $20.
Oh, I see. All right, so I'll just have to either make plans to meet him there or PayPal or something. I don't know because I can't really drive, but I wasn't sure if he ever paid it.
No, he did.
My high school crushed another high school by 6 touchdowns.
Damn.
To remain number 1 in the nation.
A good one?
USC won on Saturday. That's cool. They're knocking on the door of top 10 again. Peru plays on Wednesday. Goes, what are you doing Wednesday?
Watching the game.
I may need a ride to the doctor.
What time?
1:30.
1:30. Yeah, I can do that. Which one? That fool over on Charleston?
That fool over on Charleston.
Let's do this, guys. Oh, all right. Right now we're doing a pre-show?
Yeah,
yes,
sir. The show before the show.
Can you imagine if I would have added on to the fool at Charleston? He's cool. I'm not trying to save him or anything, but he really is. I was just about to say, how much would it take to do something ridiculous?
You're coming up
get us all in trouble.
You mean what you say like every single commercial break or when we're off the air?
Well, I'm pretty careful about who's on hold and who's doing what.
If we could put a podcast together of all of the off-air stuff, it would be, number one, it'd be explicit, but number two, I think you'd have to bleep out half the names and half the scenarios, just so it never got back to anything.
Well, yeah, we wouldn't exist.
For 30. It'd be entertaining, though.
Yeah, we just need some chic to sponsor us all. And then that's it, Everyone's mortgage is paid for, cars. We can say whatever the hell we want. Uh-oh, what happened?
10 seconds, you gotta say it.
I was writing the world's longest text message, and this has never happened before. My phone just completely closed it.
This is your captain speaking. we are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMAjunkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is gonna be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMAjunkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Gold. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yes!
The MMAjunkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communications stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMAjunkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMAjunkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMAjunkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
Well, like Rock said, from Las Vegas, Nevada, on Monday, November 13th, it's the MMAjunkie Radio Show. We're proud to be from the fight capital of the world. It's where it all goes down. Except for this weekend, it went down in Norfolk, and the weekend before, it went down in New York. But you guys get the point. The UFC is based in Vegas. A lot of big fights have taken place in Vegas over the years, boxing and MMA, so we're running with it. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes, our ace co-host, Dan Tom, our latest addition to the MMAjunkie Radio team. He's our fight analyst, and, of course, Danny Otto. He's back. He's producing. What's up, guys?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
You guys stoked? It's a good card this weekend.
Totally.
Hell yeah. The main event in Norfolk, Virginia. Wow, man. Poirier and Pettis. Ooh, I can't wait to just get into that fight itself. But overall, that card had a little bit of everything for me. I'll just give out the results, and then we'll circle back and talk about the main event. There was also a Combate card that I watched right afterwards from Cancun, Mexico. 8 men, 1 night. There was also the Bellator card the night before. AJ McKee, dude's got some skills. Other than that, though, it wasn't too deep of a card, honestly. But, of course, I had to tune in and see all the antics of Conor McGregor and Mark Goddard. Well, mostly from the McGregor side. We had talked about it as we were leaving the show on Friday, so I wanted to see what all that was about. So, yeah, I was glued, man. I saw a lot of mixed martial arts. But, of course, the meat and potatoes has to do with what went down at UFC Fight Night 120. Starting at the beginning, Carl Roberson versus Darren Stewart. It was the first fight on the prelims, but it was fun to watch, man. That Roberson guy's got some skills, and I thought Stewart had some skills going into this matchup, but you could just tell Roberson's striking skills are solid. 2 middleweights that made an impression on the Fight Pass, and something tells me that we might be talking about this Roberson guy maybe in about 2-3 years, the same way we talk about the Brunsons and Gastelums and the others that are kind of making their rise, towards the top. Jay Collier defeated Marcel Fortuna. Sean Strickland defeated Court McGee. Then we moved on to FS1, Fox Sports 1 for the prelims and main card. It all stayed on the same channel, so let's bust through 10 fight results. Nina Ansaroff defeated Angela Hill. Sage Northcutt looked good too, man. He defeated Michelle Quinones. Tatiana Suarez defeated Viviane Pereira, gave her first loss. Marlon Moraes defeated John Dodson. Split decision. How about this? Two judges went 30-27 Moraes. One judge went 30-27 Dodson. So, same fight. And I thought Dodson may have won 29-28. I think that's what I thought they were going to say. Mm-hmm. But I was okay with 29-28 Moraes. I didn't know if either guy won all 3 rounds. But I suppose they were close rounds, and it wasn't like the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Not in this sport. Clay Guida defeated Joe Lazon early on, too. Poor Joe never got going, and Clay did. He got his TKO stoppage that he's been wanting for a while. Rafael Sunsao defeated Matthew Lopez. A vicious man. Vicious ending to that fight in the 3rd round. Cesar Ferreira defeated Nate Marquardt, split decision. Cesar Ferreira had been winning that fight early on, and Marquardt, I thought, turned things around. And I thought Marquardt might be able to pull one out. But the younger guy got him. Cesar Ferreira got his hand raised. We moved to the heavyweights. Andrei Arlovski going into that fight with a 5-fight losing streak. He said he may have retired if he would have lost to Junior Albini. Albini, I think, got more criticism, not just from that really slow output of offense that he had. When he does throw hands, you can tell he's got some boxing skills. There just wasn't enough of it. But the way he rolled up his Reebok shorts to form a diaper, oh my God, it was hysterical just going on Twitter as everybody was, laying out their puns and being creative. Arlovski never stopped throwing, and I wish he would have got a finish along the way. I just think it would have, I think it would have been good for him. Either way, it was dominant enough that he got the win, but stoppage is always nicer. Matt Brown did get a stoppage. He defeated Diego Sanchez with a vicious elbow in round 1. Did not confirm the retirement that he had stated months ago when he said this would be his last fight. You can tell maybe he's taking his foot off the gas in terms of that topic, and now he'll do what I think is the right thing: huddle up with your family, huddle up with your team and advisors, and even see what the UFC maybe throws at you. He's healthy, but it's just he's not close to being in contention. Although this one fight, I guess, does at least get him maybe a pivotal fight next time around. However, if he were to decide this was it, you just can't sail off into the sunset any better than this. Dustin Poirier and Anthony Pettis, these guys went back and forth for about 2.5 rounds. Dustin Poirier did get the win over Anthony Pettis. What I haven't been able to confirm is what the official ending was. Anthony Pettis did tap, and it looked to be an injury that he sustained, and it looked to be like maybe he popped a rib, but it was something very painful in the middle of a sequence in which Dustin Poirier had his legs in a body triangle around Anthony Pettis, and Pettis was trying to do a reversal that he had actually pulled off earlier in the fight, but it didn't work out. So Dustin Poirier does get his hands raised, and he made the point: I've beaten 2 guys who have worn belts. Now, we know that the Alvarez fight was more of a no contest, but he looked good there, and a lot of people felt like that could have been a disqualification. That could have been him getting his hand raised. But technically, he did defeat Anthony Pettis, and we'll see what's up next for him. So anyway, guys, there you have it. 642,000 was the gate, 8,442 in attendance. First time the UFC's been to Norfolk, Virginia. They have been to Virginia before, but never Norfolk, and it looked like everyone had a blast. How about you guys?
Oh, that was a great card, all the way from the bottom all the way to the top. So many of those fights were back and forth. I think those are the funnest fights, and I think now you have to kind of associate. You have names like Clay Guida and Joe Lozon, where we always say we don't really even care who they're fighting. We just know it's going to be a fun fight. Now you see a new generation of fighters taking that torch a little bit, and I think one of them's got to be Dustin Poirier, right?
Yeah. I mean, if for hardcore, he's definitely been a guy you can lean on for a fun fight for quite some time. But I think that he is taking that next step. I mean, we're not just former champions like we're talking about now, but as far as being into the public eye, the main event spot, and he's delivering in the main event spot, which was, some people were, criticizing him if you look at, his past history. So you have to imagine that not just the fans, but hopefully the UFC is definitely behind putting him in that spot now. He deserves it, at least after that.
Correct. He called out Justin Gaethje or Eddie Alvarez, the winner of that fight, and then he says after that he wants to fight for the title. Now, it could work out that way. You never know how things will shape out. I'm not so sure, though, and the reason I say that is because Ferguson will fight Conor McGregor at some point, and the immediate question is, well, who's next? I would say if Khabib dominates Barboza, he's probably next, but if he doesn't, or if Barboza wins and Gaethje wins, and I believe Gaethje's next, I don't believe Alvarez is next if he defeats Gaethje. At that point, then I think it might become a 3 or 4 horse race, depending on who's actually doing what the timing is, who's healthy, and by then I'm already putting us in the summer of 2018, and that's when our heads begin to explode. But regardless, he's talking, he's getting his name out there, and that's what the UFC wants. So we'll see. I know he really, really wants the Alvarez fight, but why would he want him Gaethje wins, right? I mean, that made sense for him to just say, hey, I want the winner of this matchup. Now, also on this fight card, another thing we heard was Max Holloway now has an opponent. It's Jose Aldo. Now, we'll get back to UFC Norfolk and the results and everything that took place, but let's comment on this because this is a question mark we had going into the weekend. Hey, who's Holloway going to fight? Is he still on the card? What's up with 218? All valid questions. Well, subbing in will be Jose Aldo, so basically a rematch of the fight from earlier this summer when Holloway took the world title from Jose Aldo. Your guys' thoughts on that matchup?
I like it. I mean, how do you not get excited over Jose Aldo? It's definitely something that he needed in his career. I mean, how many times have we talked about Jose not really being that much of a team player when it comes to the UFC and maybe suffering because of that in some matchmaking or a former short notice like that? I mean, I think
there's that initial downfall when your original matchup gets taken apart. But let's face it, we're used to that in 2017 as MMA fans, and I think there's much more positives to this rebooking than others. For example, I'm of the camp where I would love to see Cub get another shot at Max, but I would also love to see him get a fair shot, not like a Damian Maia like Tyron Woodley, where he's kind of getting forced in there real quick. Whereas Aldo, granted, he's getting the same treatment, but it's a quicker turnaround, and it's a matchup that on paper makes much more action, than maybe Edgar and Aldo too. I think this gets us more excited than that Aldo rematch. And also, you got to think about Aldo's not having his time to prepare for it, and given the early success he had against Max in their first fight, you got to imagine, this might produce a more exciting Aldo fight than we're used to if he can't, go out there and rely on a 5-round gas tank to try to out game plan Max like the first time. So there's a lot of pluses here if we look at it.
I don't like it. I would have preferred Cub Swanson.
Okay.
All those last 9 fights are Mendez, Edgar, and Holloway when we throw this one in. I just feel like all I'm watching are retreads of Aldo. Now, granted, even the Aldo Lamas fight would have been that, but right. it wouldn't be affecting the belt itself. We're talking about this belt here, this featherweight belt, and I felt like Cub had done enough to get that fight. He was only going to fight 1 week later in a 5-round fight versus Brian Ortega because the main events, and that's what the UFC does is go 5 rounds. So I feel like the only thing we would have done is accelerate his week. But I think Cub would have been all right. I've never really known Cub to be a fader or anything like that in any of his fights. And so, yeah, it's a rematch. It's a rematch against Holloway as well. But I feel like I don't feel like it. I just did see the other fight.
Right.
What was it? June 2nd, I believe, June 3rd. So 5 months removed. And I just don't know that I'm ready for it again. I would have been very comfortable with Holloway versus Cub Swanson. And then the winner gets... we have to do the winner versus the winner of Aldo and Lamas, then I'm good with that, or whatever else the UFC had. I don't hate it, but I just don't understand. I don't know. I've always respected Aldo's skills, especially in the WEC. Oh my God, what a fantastic competitor! But I've never really known him to be like a fun champion, a guy that when we have him at the top, oh my God. The division is just showcased like no other. Sometimes he's either complaining, he gets injured a lot, he rarely speaks English, he fights sometimes twice a year if we're lucky. It's not fun with him at the top for me. And until fight night. Once it's fight night, it's like, whoa, did you see that shit? But yeah, whatever. It's done, right? We always say once it's done, nothing to do but support it in terms of previewing the card and letting everybody know when to tune in, and off we go. But
he did win round 1. I mean, it's not like he got completely destroyed in that fight. And then you also don't have to... who knows how many Cub Swanson fans have already bought tickets to go out there and see him against Ortega, so you don't have to break up that main event. I think it was okay. I think it worked out. And I'm with Dan. I want to see Cub have that fight, but I also want him to get that fair shake.
Although that's a good point.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was only a week apart, like Gigi said. That does kind of make me go more in the middle there. But yeah, go ahead.
Now UFC on Fox is now. Let me see the Calgary card, right? That's where they were going to fight. Let me try and pull it up here. I'm trying to multitask. Is it in Calgary, guys?
I thought
Edmonton.
I was looking ahead, but I might have been looking too far ahead. I saw Orlando being one, but that might be the next one.
No. The next one's in Canada, and now Ricardo
that one.
Lamas
Yeah,
doesn't have an
that's
opponent.
right,
Yeah, so now they pulled out Aldo. Ricardo Lamas doesn't have an opponent. He's pretty pissed, by the way. He's not too happy himself.
Well, these things never
But I
happen to
thought
Ricardo
this fight
Lamas,
card-
right?
Yeah, it's actually it's in Winnipeg. I'm sorry, it's not Calgary. It's in Winnipeg. That one's headlined by Lawler and Dos Anjos. Aldo's off, so Lamas awaits an opponent. I don't know who will step in there. Mike Perry versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, solid. Misha Serkinov versus Glover Teixeira. The other fight that I think had gotten pulled from this, and I don't know that it's really that big of a deal, wasn't Little Nog going to fight somebody?
Then he, well, you know, that's actually a pretty good segue, George, because we're talking about all the shakeups that's going on and Little Nog getting flagged. How about Anderson Silva? Happened right after we signed off on the show. I mean, God, you guys, if you go to MMAjunkie.com, you hit the rumors. Those are all the fights that are signed. They're all ready to go. Those are your fight cards. They're starting to look nothing like they look when we first input them in to what you get. Now you got Michael Bisping stepping in here on short notice. I mean, props to Michael Bisping, but guys, he was just in a pretty big battle with George St. Pierre. I don't know that this is safe.
Yeah, it's tough too. And what's the one? It feels like a lose-lose because even if you do go and win a matchup that it doesn't look good on paper from this short notice, even stylistically, guys, let's be honest. So he wins, and this is the send-off you want in Shanghai. I've been to Shanghai before. I don't know if that's a send-off you want for a glorious career. I mean, I don't know how big of a Bisping demographic is in Shanghai, you know. So I'm trying to see the silver lining here, guys.
I mean, it's got to be money, right, that dragged him to want to do this. But come on, I mean, at some point, like, friends, family, coaches, somebody has to pull a fighter aside and go, we totally believe that you can win this fight, but it's just, you got to let your body rest. You got to let your head rest. It's just too much, I think. And
he took...
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
And Anderson Silva, I mean, what do we do here? You have a guy that, for the longest time, we've been calling him the greatest of all time. And a lot of fighters that are in that position, we see kind of, even in boxing, like a Sugar Ray Leonard, they didn't really go out in the greatest of fashions. But you remember what they did. Anderson not only is having these sorts of fights, but he's also doing things to tarnish that legacy. That's making us think, well, what the hell happened this whole time while he was going on these runs? And then you have a guy who was his adversary for the long time, right? The Mayweather-Pacquiao. You have George St. Pierre, who's kind of going in the opposite direction. What are you guys' thoughts on Anderson Silva?
Well, yeah, one by one, Anderson Silva, that was disappointing to see. We haven't gotten any inkling of what happened. You know, all we know he's been flagged for a potential anti-doping violation. But you know, usually within a few days. Sometimes it takes a few weeks. Sometimes it actually, I think, in the past, maybe even accompanies a statement. Oh, we found this, a metabolite or this substance or whatever. In this case, I don't know anything, and if you guys do, please chime in. But it is disappointing, Goes. This is now the second time. The first time, oh, okay, the pill from Thailand. Yeah, you know, guys start looking at each other like, yeah, you know, we be doing dirt, whatever. But in this case, we don't know what it is, and I don't think it matters because now it's the second time. And frankly, the first time, not every guy is saying, oh, yeah, this, that, whatever. I think a lot of guys are also rolling their eyes that maybe that's just the defense, but who knows what it was. Now, there was also the leg break. He's getting older. It's tough to come back from. The Brazil culture, whatever. I think we got past it until this second time, and now I don't know what it's going to do. Can we take away those memories from those fights? Probably not. Will he always be in GOAT talk? Probably so. But now in the past, I think people would make arguments to the death on why it was Anderson. I think some people will just let go of it and say, he was probably top 10, wasn't he? I don't know. I don't even know that he'll be a Rushmore guy. You know, that's usually a top 4, and that's, who knows. But it was disappointing to see, and now we'll just let the process play out. Until then, I mean, that's just kind of what I've learned in covering the sport, that there's not much else to it other than the reaction. As far as Bisping, look, if the left hook concussed him, then yeah, there's concern. But I believe during the post-fight interview, and he was pretty genuine. He seemed to say that, he's not hurt from anything per se, like wobbly or rocked. I think it just put him on his can, and then of course he got out grappled. GSP choked him. I still don't like seeing the turnaround. I understand what he wants to do, and that's get that taste out of his mouth, of losing such a big fight, his belt. But the send-off will probably be the fight card in London, unless something serious happens in this fight. I think more than likely it's just Bisping stepping up, being a company man, and doing a solid. He probably gets paid handsomely. 2 checks in 3 weeks isn't bad. He's probably still in shape from the GSP fight, so as long as those cuts and those bruises have recovered, he may be able to pull it off. But again, all this has to do with whether or not he was concussed. And the one thing I will say about that New York card, those doctors seem to be right on it, so they must have given him a good examination before he left. And you got to believe that I guess he's going to be ready to go for China.
We hear from fighters all the time that at the time they feel great. It's not till years later where it starts to mount up all this damage. And I like the guy. I mean, I think he put in a great career, and I just don't want this to happen to him. I don't want something bad to happen to him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, but and I think this kind of all ties into this bigger issue is that not only the potentials of what could happen to Bisping, but what is it all for? This great career to what? Fill a card in China because we're doing this this oversaturation kind of thing. So now we need all these stars, except we're not able to produce these stars because of the turnaround of the shows, and then our stars from Anderson Silva getting flagged the same day. Our current star Conor McGregor is getting himself into some trouble. Could be testing his eligibility. I mean. And now then you have Bisping, who may be only a legend, former champ, who maybe only has a fight or so left in him. He's getting forced to go off, like Go said, to China and do this quick turnaround like we're talking about now. I mean, it kind of highlights this problem where Friday was just a big day to digest a lot of news for at least for me, guys. I don't know about you, but it really hit to the gut where I was like, man, we got to figure something out. Not to be an alarmist, but we got to figure something out as far as our stars go here.
Well, you're right. I think a lot of this has to do with the amount of cards that the UFC has. If you recall, on Friday we were discussing, well, if they pull Cub off of Fresno and Aljamain off of Fresno, we haven't even talked about Rivera, by the way. Rivera still needs an opponent. Marlon Moraes did throw his name into that pen, though. So anyway, we were talking about how Fresno may fall apart. Well, instead they keep their main event, and I believe Aljamain's still on the card. Mm-hmm. But it was fragile, right? And then look at UFC 219. What the fuck are they going to do there? Yeah. Cyborg and Holm aren't signing. Stipe never signed up, for that one either. Mm-hmm. There's rumors of Tyron Woodley maybe making a last-minute run, but I could have sworn he said a torn or partial torn labrum. I want a 100% Tyron Woodley. I don't want to just force the guy on the card because we need to fill the card. That's their problem for not forecasting better. I mean, it's not that they can't do 12 or 13 pay-per-views. It's just that they can't do that and all these other finales and fight nights, big box cards. It's tough to do. And again, I'm not saying chop it down from 40 to 12 or 13 or from 40 to 20. How about just 40 to 35 maybe? I think that would allow a lot of these other fight cards to just be, to make more sense. Now, will it give the UFC enough fights to keep their whole roster busy? Probably not. That's another problem that happens. But why are you off creating divisions that nobody has really proven to care much about, or where you don't have at least 20 to 30 deep either? I mean, if we're not ready for it, we're not ready for it. So, I don't know. One problem causes another, but, you're right, Dan. We really don't need to have that in China. I'm sure it's probably going to be huge for television, and that's why they needed to do it. And I doubt the UFC also just went around begging. A lot of times the stars come to them. It could be that Bisping called and said, I'll take it, and it's the same thing as a fighter. Let's say we put out our morning preview, which, by the way, today we'll have Frank Mir on the show. We'll also have Dustin Poirier on the show. But what if Kevin Lee were to call and say, hey, you guys want to co-host? We'd probably go, hey, fuck yeah. He just did the job for us. So it could be that Bisping lobbed the call that way, too. I don't know. As long as Bisping, grown man, is looking out for his health, and the UFC feels like on their end his medicals are good enough to go, that's really all we can do. I think we do enough as fans and media to care about these fighters, and like Go said, hope that the repercussions that are being paid in a few years aren't as bad as we've seen in other sports. But we won't know until a few years go by, unfortunately.
They got to be scrambling, though, right? Because if you think about it, in just what? In the last week, you lose Anderson Silva, Frankie Edgar, Dominic Cruz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are big names
Yep.
for your organization, okay? You replace Anderson Silva with Michael Bisping, who doesn't have that many fights left, okay? For Frankie Edgar, you replace him with Jose Aldo, who, if he loses this fight, he doesn't really have much clout left in that division. And he's kind of at towards the end of his leash. Like, who are these new guys that are, and gals that are replacing these fighters? There's a few of them, but there's not enough. So you either got to shorten the amount of cards that you do, or do less of them. And I don't know. Or maybe we're just all stupid, and they really are making head over fist. They just money, and we're all idiots, but it just doesn't seem to add up here.
Yeah, and these cards, you know, like this last week in Norfolk is a great example of this. It's a fun card where you have fun matchups, right? You have either new names or names that you should know, like Poirier, who are relevant. So they're doing all the right things, and mixed in you have veterans. But that's the key telling part, because it's those veterans, right? Those Sanchez's, those Matt Browns, where we were going down memory lane, and what was a lot of our memories? A lot of our memories for these guys, like I remember mine from Arlovsky was that Rochelle Leah, that UFC, you know, that countdown before the countdown shows. We had all these things to get excited for these shows and get to know these fighters, and a lot of our memories aren't even attached to some of the in-fight stuff. And the ones that are in-fight, how much are we even giving credence to those performances of last weekend, because we have UFC Sydney and all this other news too. So it's a part of the process, you know. Like George said, you remove one thing, you are affecting another. It's not like there's easy fixes out there, but at least moving in the right direction, like George said, maybe just a little bit, you know, in that direction, I think would do a lot.
Last year, the UFC was supposed to go. Okay, so back in 2017, I believe. I believe in 2017, the UFC was going to go with a pay-per-view to Anaheim, California. And in late 2016, they kind of came up on a situation like this, where they're like, "What the fuck are we going to do? There's not enough stars. The card's 8 weeks away. You know, we don't seem to have anything in line here. Let's cancel it and move it to July 29th, 2017. Anybody that lived in SoCal said, fuck, that's 6 months later. You know what I mean? And, you know, you're so looking forward to it because, you know, every couple years when the UFC comes to that area. But if you think about it, UFC 214, which was that card, turned out to be pretty epic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the UFC needs to do that every once in a while. It's just when they come across a card where they don't have enough, you know, for you to pay for, whether it's a pay-per-view or anything else, grab some of those stars and start to fill in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever stop you make around the world, have them walk away gushing. Oh my God, what a card! That was so legit. And I just feel like every once in a while the UFC can do that, you know, because this last fight card had 13 fights. That's 26 fighters. Now, not all of them are stars. But still, you could have grabbed a couple of those matchups and started doing some fill-in, some patchwork, and now all of a sudden, you know, there's maybe 5 or 6 cards that get this influx of talent on it, and I believe it helps the UFC and their relationship with the potential consumer to whatever city they're going to. Now, of course, it's not that easy. You have to make some phone calls. Maybe Anaheim wasn't available for 6 months, and that's why it took that long, but I guess at that point you take it on the chin. But I think the UFC, I think they should do that, man. You know, if a fight card just isn't coming along the way it's supposed to, then maybe you bite the bullet a little bit on all the advertising you put out and the hotels that you got on hold or whatever. But I still don't think you can come in there and just give anything less, you know, than the precedent. And the precedent for these pay-per-views, New York is sick. Detroit is sick. Las Vegas? Hell no. That card is just, you know, especially with the loss of Dominic Cruz versus Rivera. I mean, what are they really going to do there? Mariah's calling out Rivera. I appreciate that. That's cool. But, I mean, he just got away with a split decision win over Rivera, whereas Cruz is a former champion. For a lot of people, that just doesn't matter as much. They got some work to do. But tell you what, we got to do this break. We don't want to fall behind too much. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. When we come back, we'll take some calls, and then we'll also dissect this card a little bit that took place in Norfolk. Stay close, folks. We'll be right back.
boss to reschedule that meeting. Call your wife and tell her lunch is off. It's time for more MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes.
Your favorite holiday music channels are back on SiriusXM. Check out contemporary holiday favorites on Holly, Channel 70, and holiday traditions on Channel 4. You can get our complete holiday lineup on SiriusXM.com/holiday. Pump that, Danny. I like that song. That's Michael McDonald, right?
Not Hall & Oates?
Yeah, this is Hall & Oates.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Positive.
I would almost Chipotle bet both of you.
Chipotle bet us.
That doesn't sound like Daryl Hall.
I mean, I'm staring right at it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wait.
Michael McDonald.
Don't Chipotle bet us. Well, maybe
It is
Chipotle
Michael
bet
McDonald?
Danny, because Danny, he's the one that inputted it, so he would know.
Here's what I will say. We're both wrong.
Yeah. I'm looking at the wrong song.
Yeah. This is a couple of... Go sent me a couple of songs, and these were one after the other, so if we Chipotle bet, we'd both be wrong.
Who is it?
This is the Doobie Brothers.
Who's the lead singer of the Doobie Brothers?
No idea.
Let's look it up. Hold on a second. This is killing me.
I don't think it's Michael McDonald, though.
Let's see here. Well, you got the odds on your side because there's 6.5 billion other people it could be.
Yep.
But let's see if I'm right. Yeah, Michael McDonald.
Is the singer of the Doobie Brothers?
Well, he's in it, yeah. Can you imagine, like, Tony from San Francisco's probably like, what the fuck is wrong with these guys? Don't they know their music? I mean, this is old 70s stuff, but he had a unique voice. So what it says here is the band's history can roughly be divided into 3 eras, from 69 to 75. They featured lead vocalist Tom Johnston and featured a main rock and roll sound with elements of folk, country, and R&B. Johnson quit the group in 1975 and was replaced with Michael McDonald. So I'd get...
Wait, when...
I'd get a Chipotle, but maybe a donut or something, right?
When did he replace?
I don't know. I think that's like Danny's version of
1975?
Gracie.
Oh, you were so close. This is from 79. So this is like so close.
No, you replaced him in 75.
That's
so that
what I'm
means
saying.
McDonald was in them for 4 years.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, this is probably the first like full album that he was on, type of thing.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Where were we? We're going to talk a little bit about the Conor McGregor incident, but let's take some calls first, and then I feel like we were also, if we didn't put Anderson to bed, we'll do that. Also, Bisping stepping up, kudos to him, and definitely don't want to take any shine away from Poirier. He'll be a guest of ours, but that really was a great fight. I mean, a really great fight. Bloody mess out there in Norfolk, Virginia, and I thought really a lot of the fighters, along with the UFC production, everybody did a great job of acknowledging Veterans Day throughout the broadcast, through social media, the post-fight speeches. I just thought that was a great connect. Norfolk is definitely a military town. Goes and I have been there. That's the airport we land, including Dan Tom as well. So it was just great to see that. And then even the following day, Fox, the pregame show, I don't know if they have an actual name or not, but Jimmy, Howie, Michael, Terry, and Kurt,
guy.
they were there as well for the pregame show, and Jay Glazer. So just really a home run for Fox and the UFC. Excuse me, guys?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you said something. All right, so let's take some calls. And if you want to join in the queue, it's 866-522-2846. Jordan in Vancouver, what's up?
Hey, guys. I wanted to ask you about the Conor McGregor situation there.
All right.
The first time I saw it, first thing I thought was he's stealing the spotlight from a teammate again after probably the biggest win of his career, just like he did a couple weeks ago. But that's not what people are talking about. When Jason Hyde pushed a referee, somewhat concussed, he got banned for life. What repercussions do you think Conor will see from the UFC, if any? I don't think he'll see any. And what do you think? Any repercussions from Bellator? Will he be banned from Bellator events, or deep down to Scott Coker like the publicity?
I think he'll get a slap on the wrist at most.
Yeah.
What did you see, Goes, that took place when you see all the videos that came through?
I don't think that he was stealing the spotlight, but I think he's gotten to the point where he's gotten so big that he just stops thinking about repercussions or anything like that because he thinks he's bigger than, when he says, I am boxing, I am MMA, I think he really believes it, and he definitely acts like it because anybody else would have not only thought before they did something like that, but also have some sort of remorse, and he just doesn't really have that anymore, man.
Yeah, I
He
think
slapped a commission official as well.
Yeah.
Second video.
Dan, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's a bad look. You guys know that I'm not or any people that know me know I'm not a fan of that type of behavior, and I think we can all say it's past gimmick, it's past shtick, or any of those words we want to put on it. This is more of a human behavior that we've seen, not just in combat sports. Any of us who followed sports, we've seen this. It's that cliche, drunk with power, so they say. It's got to be some variation of that. It's a social study, if you will, but I think that's what we're seeing here. I think it's beyond shtick, it's beyond funny. And yeah, I think a lot of sentiment your feelings there as far as, kind of over that.
There's so much pressure on officials, on MMA, on referees, judges. The last thing they should have to ever worry about is somebody that's not even involved in the fight getting in the cage.
Especially
and
a fighter.
In there there's so much shit they have to put up with already. Like, that's the last thing they need to be worried about.
Yeah, and a two-part answer, Jordan. Let's take it separately. For one, I heard Ben Folk say the same thing, that he's stealing the shine from somebody else. For one, I don't believe that's his intent when he does this. He was trying to pick up Lobov as they were walking, towards the back, and he hurled the unfortunate homophobic slur. Or if they're talking about the actual coaching, that's just a passionate friend / teammate who should have done the right thing and just become a licensed cornerman, but, that's not the way he rolls. And in this case, he was just basically happy for another guy. So he doesn't go in there intentionally doing it. It's what everyone's talking about rather than the win. But trust me, that teammate's benefiting from these highlights and from the fact that, now Bellator may just feature that guy, in the future just because his name's been thrown around a lot. So I don't know, that those particular teammates are like irate with Conor because of the way things went down. But now let's talk about the incident itself. He's not a licensed cornerman, so to just jump over, that means any fan can jump over. You gotta stop that at some point. So Goes is right. The referee's got a lot on their hands, especially when one fighter's down and they're in the process of recovering. If they try and get up, you'll notice the referee has to guide them in. That's why only certain officials are coming in. Usually it's the cut man to clean them up, to hold them up, to tend to them, a doctor or anybody else. And there has to be some order inside of the cage, the octagon, the ring, insert, whatever. And Conor was taking away from that process. And so that's not a good thing. Now, getting past that, obviously, 2-3 weeks before, when Goddard said what he did to Conor, you could tell Conor reacted in a way like, oh, that's my bad. Put his hands together almost like, please forgive me, and walked away. Kind of took it like a champ. And,
right.
And didn't look like he made much of it right then and there. But you could tell at some point, again, Conor's huge ego probably thought, who the fuck does this guy think he is, And, maybe he kind of harbored that and held on to that. And so he was just waiting for the next time, I guess, when they would cross paths and he'd have an opportunity to maybe punk him back. But as you can see, I don't even know if Goddard or the other gentleman that was in there knew exactly what was happening at that time. All they could see is just somebody jumping in, and you could almost say, did he attack him? Is he on the same side? Is he on another side? What's going on here? But it was pretty clear by then they were celebrating, and you could see Goddard as he walked away kind of giving him a shove like, oh, you again, or like, why do you have to be this way, Not necessarily a shove like, get the fuck out of here or anything like that. I keep hearing the word shove, but I just think it was kind of like a pushback. So obviously I'm seeing the Conor McGregor fans hang on to that and say Goddard struck him first, pushed him first. No, he didn't. All right. If you count that as that, come on now.
Yeah.
You grow up a little bit.
Yep.
That's not what that was. He's basically disgusted with him because now he has to get back to the fighter that was on the losing end. And as he's walking over, that's when McGregor comes over again, and that's the time he decides to unleash on Goddard, say what he's got to say, and then of course if you really look at it, that fighter, forgive me, I don't know his name, but he even gets pushed into a little bit as he's kind of like slumped and trying to recover. So that's not cool. I mean, luckily he was okay, but had that been someone else, you just never know what could have happened there, where that person could have got hurt some more. And that's where it's just not fair. These things, I think every fighter should have the same opportunity, win or lose, and somebody else interrupting it is not cool. I don't believe Conor, when he went over that cage, wanted to disrupt the Bellator show or wanted to do anything other than to celebrate with his teammate. He needs to learn that. How we admonish him about it, I don't know, because Bellator, what can they do? He's not under their roster. I suppose he could be banned on future shows, or they could just have a talk with him and say, you're going to have to behave at a future show, because they've been to Ireland a few times, and I just don't know that they would really, really want to stop him because, again, the intent. Now, we haven't gotten to the part where he slaps the other guy, though. So up until that point, I really thought everything just would have been forgotten about. Maybe the UFC could have had a statement that, under the UFC banner, this would not be tolerated, blah, 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 and just skate off and have that technicality. But then when he tries to get back up, again, this is Conor trying to be bigger than the sport, tries to get back up, climbs the cage, the Bellator official or whoever that is says you can't do that, and he starts to push him back, and that's when Conor slaps him. That's, I think, what we're going to have to isolate ourselves on. And what they're going to do, I don't know. I think the UFC has a way to save face, but also not put any of their future cards in jeopardy. Whether it's a 90-day suspension, a 6-month suspension, I don't know. I think they could pull them both off. Whatever fine it is, it's not going to hurt Conor. So what can they do? What really can they do? I mean, how can they hurt the kid? Others are saying, hey, more than a year, lifetime. I mean, come on, don't be ridiculous. That's just not going to happen. Whether you believe it's right or not, it's just not going to happen. Well, what you guys do, Goes and Dan?
Well, I think the only way to hurt somebody that's in that position, that feels like they're bigger than the sport, feels like, in any other sport we've ever seen, the only way to really get to them is money. But, I mean, what kind of fine are you going to give a guy who just cashed that kind of a check,
Mm-hmm.
I think he's smart enough where even a little bit of money going away for something like that would probably bother him. So I think they have to do that and throw some sort of suspension to save face. Because you're right, George. I mean, you have to save some kind of face. You can't just let somebody run around and do what they want. So if you're going to tell all your other fighters, I mean, you see how fighters react now with things that Conor gets away with. You're going to start seeing anarchy from other guys if you don't really tighten the screws on this guy here. So I would say some sort of fine and like 6 months, maybe, something like that.
I would just say they have to do something, because you're right, Goes. Money's not going to be an issue, but it's more the point. It's more proving the point at this point, because just two things that George touched on, which I'll highlight, is the intent. But I think just like we're beyond shtick, I think we're beyond the intent. I'm sure it wasn't Conor's intent when he jumped over, but he jumped over the fence. And as somebody who just cornered a fighter recently, a fighter that I care about, a couple months ago, who was stopped and who was stopped in the first round, my first instinct was to get up as a friend, as a cornerman, to get in there because I care about that person. And even I knew the rules, but even though I knew the rules, my human reaction was just to stand up out of my stool. And even as I stood up out of my stool, guys, I felt an official hand on my shoulder, said, "Hey, wait, can't go in there yet." And it wasn't that I was going to jump it, but it's because they're on top of it at an amateur show. So to see a guy with free reign to hop over, or even before he hopped over, let's rewind it back to Gdansk, running around the octagon. I have no sympathy for that. I don't care what your intent is. I don't care what your relationship is. And George touched on another great point, which was the concussed fighter inside. Mark, that's the point where the referee needs to be guiding, telling the fighter he's okay, where he's coming back into conscious to, not allowing him to stand, because we just saw this weekend, Clay Guida versus Joe Lozon. Guida, he's a nice guy and all, but he probably shouldn't have stood Lozon right up, right? What did he do? You saw how out of sorts Lozon was. That's such a crucial period where the fighter could get re-injured, and Conor just took away from all that. I could care less what his intent is at that point. So back to the punishment. I don't care what it is. They have to do something.
There's only one thing to do here. December 30th, Goddard versus McGregor, Vegas.
Thanks, Jordan, for the call.
Love the show, guys.
All right, thank you, sir.
You
know what? Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll finish a little bit more on this. I think I'm gonna put us all on the spot. We got to figure out some sort of a fine and punishment, just to see what we're thinking here. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. Stay close. We'll be right back. And don't forget, in the second hour, we'll have Frank Mir and Dustin Poirier.
They pat down TSA agents because they don't know where those people have been, and because they can. They are Gorgeous George and Goes, and this is MMA Junkie Radio.
Let's do this. I'll give the Sirius XM read in just a sec here. We'll talk to Marco, and then that'll give us a few more minutes to figure out an appropriate fine and suspension for Conor McGregor. I just have a feeling whatever we come up with isn't going to really matter too much to Connie Mack when it comes right down to it. So in the end, what does the UFC do? Because obviously if it's transparent, the fans see through it, it won't matter. So that's why should the UFC even bother with it? Who knows? But we'll get into that more in the second hour when we have some time to really dive into it. Right now, let's talk to Marco in Waco, Texas. What's up, Marco?
Marco from Waco, ¿Qué pasa, vatos?
¿Qué pasa, man?
There's so much to unpack on this whole thing. So real quick, awesome weekend. Love the way they chanted Witta's name. Matt Brown, Mintas, Matt Brown, Poitier, awesome. That's taken care of. Aldo versus Holloway, we already saw that, man. And I know how it's going to end up again. Don't like the rematch. I want to ransom. Now let's talk Conor. Just guys, I agree something has to happen, but I guarantee you nothing will. Remember when Mayweather was supposed to go to jail and the Nevada State Athletic Commission make a special exemption for him so he could fight, and then he went to serve his time? If felony domestic violence assault, get overlooked because of the revenue that you bring to a state and a company, this is going to get swept under the rug. Right? They're going to give him a slap on the wrist, probably like a 100,000 fine or something like that, and do a PR tour, and that's about it. The guy brings way too much money. $1.5 million pay-per-views every time he shows up on the freaking cage. And WME and Endeavor now had a $4 billion note they had to pay off. So they're not going to do anything to Conor except a slap on the wrist. Let's face reality. When money talks, check walks. Peace out.
When money talks,
SiriusXM has your chance to win a trip to UK to see Billy Joel live at Old Trafford Ground, home of Manchester United. It's Billy's first performance at the iconic stadium, and you can watch it from the front row. No additional purchase necessary. To enter or win, for official rules, go to SiriusXM.com/Billy Joel Manchester. All right, we'll talk a little bit more about what Marco said. Also, by the way, this contest, it ends January 2nd, so plenty of time to get into it, but don't blow that chance. Danny, MMA history today, what happened?
Crap, I didn't have it up. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
I can get it.
All right, let's see if Danny can do it. You got 45 seconds. I'm going to be in your ear now.
18 years ago today, the legendary Quentin Rampage
40.
Jackson made his professional MMA debut and defeated Mike Pyle.
35.
That happened November 13th, 1999.
30. Damn. All right.
30 seconds left.
I was trying to make you panic. Yeah, that's right. Mike Pyle's first fight. Mike Pyle, the UFC welterweight that we know now. His first fight was against the guy who actually won a world title in the middleweight and light heavyweight divisions. Same thing, Pride in the UFC respectively. And now fights at heavyweight. How crazy is that? He actually told a great story in our archives. You'll have to dig it out yourself, but it was pretty classic. We'll be right back, folks, after this break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM, Rush 93.
What I want, you got, but it might be hard to handle. But like a flame that burns a candle, but candle feeds the flame. Yeah, what I got, full stop, of thoughts and dreams that scatter. When you pull them all together, and how to display. Oh yeah, well, you make my dreams come true.
So picture this song. Any guy who just turned 21 and he's at the strip club for the first time and he's in VIP, he's singing this song to himself right now. The stripper just stepped out and she said, "I'm gonna go get us some drinks. I'm yours for the next hour." And the guy's just laying back going, "Oh hell yeah." Of course, some states you only have to be 18.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that. I think,
yeah, maybe 21's
here,
a little low. I think we've matured a little bit at that point.
I think here it's like that, right? Or, sorry,
Totally
in
nude.
California, yeah.
Well, totally nude in California, Nevada, I believe is 18, but they don't serve alcohol. There is one place that's grandfathered in, and I think it's the Palomino in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you have to bring your own alcohol. You're allowed to bring it yourself.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that distinction was totally nude, no alcohol, topless, alcohol.
What are the rules for female
remember
strip clubs, George?
Oh, I don't know. I have to find that out. But one time when I was in L.A., one of the corniest lines ever got me high fives. Not even fist bumps. That's how long ago this was. People weren't fist bumping it. It was still the high five. It was totally nude, and it was 1988. So that makes GG just 18, and something like that. Yeah.
The year Die Hard came out.
I think it was. Excuse me.
Sorry, so the year Die Hard came out, 1988. All right.
Yeah, and
Because
so
you graduated in 87.
Reagan had done his thing, right? And I think the next guy that was running was Bush versus Dukakis. I forget, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, and all my boys were all lined up, and I remember the girl was dancing, and she put, she brings her pussy right to my face, and I just remember going, man, I was going to vote for that guy, but put me down for Bush. All my friends a couple of them fell out of their chairs. A few of them ran over to high-five me. Even the stripper kind of blushed and giggled. Threw a couple of ones. I thought I was the man that night. I was like, oh, man, I just cracked the best joke of the night. Even though looking back, it is corny. And I'm sure someone's offended, and at this point, I may have to go apologize to the stripper. The great things are going. But anyway, it just brings back that memory. And that's why I'm very familiar with the fact that we were all laughing, not because we were drunk, just because it was a decent line.
I thought you were
all right, we'll catch up with Frank Mir.
Go ahead. I thought you were going to bring up another line. I thought wasn't one of our friends, I don't want to say the name, but didn't he say something
Oh, yeah, I can
stupid?
give you a good Sammy the Squid story.
I threw someone
I
under the
guess if
bus.
you want to do the name.
Throws him right under the bus.
Yeah, Squid don't give a fuck. I mean, you know what? If it happened years ago, then what are you going to do, right? If it happened last night, then he'd be like, yo, stop, you know. But he had another line that I remember I laughed my ass off. Now, that one, I think we were drunk, so I think I literally laughed for about 20 minutes. Oreo, is he on hold?
He is.
Yeah.
All right, what's up, Oreo?
Hey, George, don't ever apologize for a joke like that, and that's hilarious.
Thank you, sir. Well, I just meant the way I don't know, every time I log on, somebody's being offended for something that happened 20, 30 years ago. And look, some of them are valid, but there's some out there where it's like, you know, come on now, you know?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for that Orlovsky play. Because of that, I profited a little bit, you know?
Yes.
Remember, yeah, so. Hey, you guys, that Bisping booker. So, he was in a war last week, yet...
It wasn't a war. Was it a war, guys?
Yeah, I would say so. Well,
a war?
Well, because maybe Poirier Pettis or Poirier Alvarez would be a war. How about a battle?
Yeah, it was a battle. I mean, but I don't know that what's his face that GSP landed that many thumping type shots. I mean, what do you mean? Like, were his bodies physically exhausted, or are you just talking about the preservation of his brain?
Oh, both. I mean, he got choked out and knocked down. I'm pretty sure he has a concussion. He got knocked down, right?
Like I say, if you think the left hook did it, yeah, it knocked him down, perhaps. But if you're talking about just the choke out, I mean, a lot of people have been, you know, choked out, and they're still able to, you know, compete within a reasonable amount of time. That I don't think there's as much concern about. Goes, great point. Yes, a lot of those elbows landed. A lot of them cut him up, bruised him up. You know, he's had the problems with the vision in his eye. But as far as concussion protocol, just like you see in the NFL or over there, what you guys call CFL, minor league version there. You know, they take these players in, they do run them through a test, not just because your bell's wrong, do you have a concussion? You may have a certain degree of a concussion, I suppose. I don't know. I'm not an expert. But a lot of them are able to come back out and compete in that same game. And, you know, they've actually partaken in some violence. So there's parts of the heads that do protect you. And like I say, the doctors are definitely a lot more intelligent now when it comes to that. The athletes, same thing, looking for themselves. And so I believe that in looking at that, if he's good to go, then I suppose he's good to go. But I don't know that it was. I don't know. It's on him.
No, I just feel a little weird about him being in a battle, right, 3 weeks before, and then like fighting right away. I don't know. I feel somebody has to protect him from himself. You know, like I don't know what his manager was thinking exactly. A soft hitter, that guy.
I know, that's the scary thing.
You know?
Yeah. In fact, I didn't bring this up, but I also wondered because Gaston's been training in Southern California for a while, and so has Bisping. Now, I don't know that they've ever really been much of training partners or anything like that. Maybe back in the Rain days, but maybe if Bisping felt like he got the better of him, it also could be that, you know, like, oh, I remember this guy, we trained, and I think I got him, you know. Who knows, brother? I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, could you ask Dustin if you remember? He's trying to call out the winner of Gaethje and Alvarez, but called him out last week, and you know, so he's probably gonna wait even longer for the Gaethje Alvarez fight. But with the James Vick fight, he could get that in like the early first quarter. So. Could you just ask him if he's willing to take that James Vick fight? I mean, it's a main event, probably big stage still, so just wondering if he would take that, if you can remember.
Sure.
I will try. I think I owe you one, but I don't think he'll be taking it, brother.
You don't think
I
so?
sound like Hulk Hogan. I think I've said brother like 5 times in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, dude.
Here.
Yeah, brother.
Hey, fuckface. I don't think he's going to take it. Just kidding. I don't think he's going to take it personally because it's nothing against Vic. He's got credible stats. What is he, like 14, 15, and 1, 8 and 1 in the UFC? I mean, he's right. He deserves more respect. But the fighters usually want to look upwards, and also if not that, then you have to be bringing something to the table if you're going to look, you know, the other way. And he's linked up to Alvarez if Alvarez wins. And if not, then like I say, that was his 21st fight. He's put in some time, and I don't know that he would. I don't know that he would do it. But I guess it's fair to ask him. I mean, it's not the craziest thing I ever heard. I guess it's just my prediction of what I think he's going to say.
Yeah, it's just that logic, then that winner, Gaethje and Alvarez, will be like, oh, I deserve the top 5 guy. I don't want to fight Dustin. Eddie could be like, oh, I trashed him already, or Gaethje could be like, you know.
Well, no, Eddie can't say that. He didn't trash him. Gaethje could say, I'm undefeated, I want a title shot. But again, if Nurmi can prove he made the weight and beats Barbosa impressively, brother, then you got to give him the winner of Ferguson versus Conor, and that means Gaethje would have to wait. Then Poirier could possibly slip in. So there's so many things, you know, so many ways to look at this. We'll probably both be right, both be wrong at some point. But thanks for the call.
All right, thanks. Take care.
All right. How are we looking on Frank Mir?
Calling him right now.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. All right, guys, did you think of your fine and your length of suspension for Conor McGregor?
Yeah. I'm going to go 6 months, 50,000.
Dan Tom?
I'm going to go 87,000 because it was Bellator 187 and 6 months.
Actually, can I take mine back?
Why not 187,000?
Yeah, 187,000. You're right.
Can I take mine back?
Sure.
Can I go 6 months and not make him eligible for any fight of the night bonuses or Reebok money for a year?
That's interesting. I think you guys did a great job, honestly. I was going to say it doesn't, the amount I don't think matters as much as Conor can cover it. And creatively, let's just say this kind of shit goes behind the scenes where they go, listen, we got to save some face. We're going to find you $100,000. We'll just pay you $100,000 next on the next fight because we don't think this is that big a deal, but we got to do something. If a conversation like that takes place behind the scenes, that wouldn't shock me. But the statement itself carries a lot of weight with mainstream media and fans. So the fact that if they can reach six figures, then I think that would appease a lot of the people that just feel like, one guy's trying to run the whole show. As far as permanently parting ways, that's not going to happen. And yes, Dana White will find a way to say, well, that was under the UFC banner. We can't control these guys 24/7, blah, blah, blah. Because he did say you can't touch your hands on a ref. He was disgusted when High did it. Of course, he gave Roy Nelson, I think, 9 months when he touched John McCarthy. So there is some precedent there. But I think he'll be able to let's say that this is what happened with Bellator. But I think a six-figure fine just sends some sort of a statement. As far as the suspension, I don't know that it'll matter as much, but keeping it real, I just don't see that why they would want to keep a healthy Conor McGregor on the fence. So they may say, hey, look, we may have to miss the March window and just run this all the way till not Independence Day. Well, it's that weekend, but what do they call it? International Fight Week Day, or who knows, man.
Well, suspension is where it gets tricky, but here's the creative solution, and maybe Goz would appreciate this, because let's be honest, if Goz were a commission member, he wouldn't be handing out fines. He'd be handing out hypotheticals, right? Yeah. So you give Conor this would really teach him the lesson, and it would avoid suspension. You do MMA's version of community service, except you have Conor McGregor, Shadow, maybe even Mark Goddard. That would make a good Fight Pass show, right? Shadow Mark Goddard or an official as an official, and he has to work an entire event before he can fight again. No. So he checks his ego, puts his ego in check. It gives something to the community. You get to give your announcement. UFC doesn't have to worry about not having to schedule him. And shoot, they could even have a camera follow that around, and that would make it for some Fight Pass content, huh?
Have him or Nate Diaz done any of the community service from the bottle throwing incident? Didn't they get that?
I believe so, yeah. I think he already did it in Vegas.
They both did?
I don't know about Nate, but I'm pretty sure Conor did.
What did he do?
I think he had to speak to schools or something, or speak to
people.
That's
right. It was a bullying, anti-bullying.
I
he did like a public service announcement.
I'm with that. Some hours of community service would be good. It's respecting the chain of command or whatever, officials in a fight game. I think a strong fine. As far as like the suspension time, I don't think it'll matter as much. If it's 90 days, everybody will see the fact that they just wanted them on the March Vegas card. If it's 6 months, they'll just see that they wanted them on International Fight Week. I don't know, man.
If the fine doesn't scare him, it's not big enough.
It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
I think if he doesn't hit that Bellator official, that's where Bellator may ban him from future, or at least say, you're not here for another year. A year goes by so quick, too. But they may say it and at least stand up for their official. Who knows? That's the part that I that really sucked. Not that the other part didn't. It's just, he is a little out of control, but he runs the game. I wouldn't say he's boxing, but definitely right now it seems like he's MMA.
If to make lighter on the situation, if anybody's curious, I did a call out for Twitter, and I said they kept running those McGregor Bud Light commercials, and I'm like, can somebody overlay the audio of this commercial onto the video of his indiscretions at Bellator? And shout out to @JediGoodman on Twitter. He actually did that, and it's a pretty funny video. It's on my Twitter somewhere if anybody wants to go find that. But it was pretty comical to make light of the situation. But yeah, it's something should be done.
Take him off the EA Sports cover, the video game.
Oh, that's a little much. They can't do that now, can they? Who would they put on instead, though?
I don't know if they can do that.
I mean, the game's not out, right?
Sports would be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
No. Well, yeah, that's true.
I'm just picturing Conor in a black polo and in an official, outfit. That he looks so out of place there, just so plain looking and being forced to stand around. And
hey, by the way, did you guys hear an injury forces Patricio Freire out of Bellator 188?
Man,
so that kind of hurts them. Those injuries hurt Bellator a lot more than the UFC.
Yeah,
that was a world title fight, and of course it cost us 15 minutes of translating and back and forth that we could have definitely done without. I love Pitbull, but come on, man, his English was good enough that we could have just rolled with that one and talked to him.
What I thought was weird
Marlon
too?
Moraes.
Well, that's who I was going to bring up. Why did Marlon need a translator at the beginning? He speaks perfect English, and luckily he came in and said, "Hey, I speak English." but he did kind of wave the translator over, right, to start.
Yeah, I did notice
emotional. He was emotional, and I think he wasn't sure what he wanted to do. And then he realized, fuck it, I can do it. Let's do it. I'm just going to talk this through and call out Jimmy Rivera. And hopefully get that fight, you know. But yeah, you're right, Goes. I heard that as well, and I was like, not sure that makes too much sense because his English is very good. Do you guys want that fight, Moraes versus Rivera, or do you prefer Aljamain versus Rivera?
No, I actually like the Marlon fight, and I like that there's a little bit of heat. I like that he asked for it in the cage. I loved everything about it.
Me too. I actually think I like Aljo and want to keep seeing him on this run. I think Rivera would be a tough matchup for him, and I think that just it makes more sense to put Rivera against a guy like Moraes instead. They're much more higher touted dudes as far as the rankings go, for whatever that's worth.
You guys see Crow Cops returning?
Yeah.
Chikos, what's his name? Takoshi Kosaka TK. We call him on December 31st, Ryzen FF event. I mean, always fun to see Crow Cop, but I guess if someone's waving the money, he'll take it. I'm not necessarily interested in the matchup, but I've always been a Crow Cop fan, so good for him. How about Clay Guida taking negotiations in public? But he did it respectfully, and I think he may be able to pull it off.
Has he ever done anything that would really, where the UFC would go, well, we like you, Clay, but, I mean, he's always been a company guy. He's always given great fights. He's always given 110%. Like, God, if anybody can pull it off, it's him.
I wouldn't say he's always giving great fights. He's given great fights.
What, like the
Maynard?
Maynard?
For a while,
he
kind of went in. Yeah, the Maynard fight was painful.
Yep.
And he hasn't always, for about a 3 to 4 year stretch, a lot of fans did not like his style one bit, and I'm sure even the UFC would co-sign. Now, over the course of 20-some fights, he has had some great fights, and that's the thing that I think kept him going. And he's won, his fair share of great matchups. I mean, he's got a Pettis win under his belt. He's got a Nate Diaz win under his belt. Now a Lozon win under his belt. He's got the whole ritual with his brother and getting slapped, and so he's got some popularity to him. But I wouldn't say he's always given us great fights because there's been some snoozers along the way.
Yeah, I agree with that. There definitely was a lull there, but I guess the fact that you could still, after that lull and the last couple fights, they do those shots to the audience guys, and you see guys with the Guida chainsaws and the Guida Italian flags, and to me in this Reebok area that speaks louder than it did before. Like before, we would always see guys coming to bat for their fighters, but if you have fighters in this day and age that can set themselves apart or still hold on to a shtick, whatever that is, I think that's important. And Guida, if anything, he proves he still has that fan base, and bravo. I really enjoyed that post fight. Hopefully he gets a good deal.
Let's talk to DJ Tony, and then we'll take our first break of the second hour as we work on getting Frank Mir on the show. What's up, DJ Tony? How you doing?
Coming at you, gentlemen. I am shocked. As the great Michael McDonald once told the former UFC fighter Michael McDonald, I keep forgetting Yamo be there minute by minute. Guys, how could you guys not know the great... You know what, like I told Danny, in all fairness, Michael McDonald may not know that he was a Doobie Brother either, since they were really high on drugs. And mountain high enough, by the way, guys. You know what I think
this guy's doing
with the UFC... I'm on fire, right?
Yeah.
You know what I think that the UFC should do, and I think you guys would agree with me, this would never happen, but what they should do about Conor McGregor. And honestly, this would make Dan Tom happy. This would actually give him some rhythm when he dances. This would make Dan happy because it's leveling the playing field. So what the UFC should do, really endeavor, is strip Conor McGregor of the title. I know you guys are laughing, right? But think of it this way: he can't go anywhere. That contract is ironclad. He can't go anywhere, and it does bring him back down to earth for a little bit. Because right now, Conor McGregor, I don't know if it's drugs or whatever it is, and I probably shouldn't say that, but he's out of control, guys, and he's becoming a real problem to literally everything that the Endeavor and the UFC is trying to do. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time. You guys literally are the best, and I'll talk to you next time.
All right, thank you. The only thing I'll say is this. If the UFC does go all the way to 6 months, they would be rightful in their place to say, we're just moving on, and when Conor's ready to come back, he gets the immediate title shot. Tony Ferguson, you're our new champion. Boom, boom, move on from that. Because that would be almost 18 months removed from when he beat Alvarez. Now, it would also allow Conor to still make the company money and go fight, box Paulie Malignaggi or do whatever he's got to do, get himself sorted out. But I don't know. I don't think anything much will happen. Let's take a break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM, Rush 93. Stay close, folks.
Yeah, you. Can you please tap that rather large fellow on the shoulder and tell him it's time for more MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes? Thank you.
Your favorite holiday music channels are back on Sirius XM. Check out contemporary holiday favorites on Holly Channel 70 and holiday traditions on Channel 4. You can get your complete lineup at SiriusXM.com/holiday. All right. Last week on Friday, it broke in the newspaper, USA Today, that Bellator will be having their 2018 MMA World Grand Prix. At the end of this tournament, they will have a new heavyweight champion. One of the 8 participants joins us on the show. What's up, Frank Mir? How you doing?
Not much, man. How's it going, guys?
Good. Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio. You're on with George, Goes, and Dan. Tom, our newest addition. A fight card. I know they haven't told us when and where, but we do know that sometime maybe around April or just after that, you will be fighting.
Yeah, man, it's exciting to actually be a fighter again. A little bit of limbo there this last year and a half, not having a fight scheduled and not being able to participate. And, I finally get to fight again. It's something that when you don't do something you love, it makes it even that much worse.
Frank, were you able to rest, maybe rest the body, from all the years of competing, at the same time maybe address minor injuries, and at the same time were you also able to even get better during this time off?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that's the only thing that kind of made somewhat sanity is, still going to the gym and just kind of keeping things sharp, but not training hard. Like Angelo, working with him just a couple of days ago. Even now, I kind of got excited last week and wanted to pick up the pace, and he had to let's not do that just yet. We got to remember our age. We We're going to have a camp. Let's just keep having fun, moving around, in there kind of shadow boxing with Anna Hulutin, moving around, just having fun and just, learning martial arts again, just resharpening things. And that's one thing actually I've been doing the most of that really kept my sanity was working at the ACB, doing all the color commentary with Brian Lacey, breaking fights down. Now I sit there and watch things, and I've seen so much more now because I've watched so many countless hours of video of just two guys fighting and actually breaking it down analytically, not just watching it just for pure entertainment factor. And all the things, I'm like, oh, okay, well, man, I wish I always would have done that. And, oh, look how simple this is. Oh, okay, that's why this works or why it doesn't work. And so I've really gotten to, my mind's even advanced even more so.
Yeah, and you guys also got to launch the Phone Booth Fighting podcast, which is doing well, folks. It's on iTunes. It drops a couple times a week. Frank Mir and Richard Hunter delivering the goods. You can definitely subscribe and give them a follow. It'll definitely help them out, and it's worth it. Give it a listen and check it out. But it's great that you were able to make the most out of these last couple of years.
Yeah, and you're right. Working with Richard, doing the podcast stuff, that's probably actually the one area that now I've learned the most is sitting back and actually doing what you guys do, being a journalist more and interviewing and looking at things from that perspective. I have a new appreciation for everybody on the other side of a question. Sometimes when you get asked a question as a fighter, you don't realize what the other person on the other side is thinking, what they're trying to portray, what they're trying to convey, and actually make you look good, and how to actually formulate those answers in ways that it's beneficial for everybody.
Now, Frank, last week, obviously on your show, you stated what you believe the matchups might be. Bellator has also come out and said, well, that's not locked in, but at least what it looks like from us is that's what you would like it to be, you versus Fedor in the first round. But if not Fedor, who else do you think you would like to tangle with if it's up to you?
Well, honestly, just anybody who's a legendary name. I mean, that's just the cool thing about our sport. I'm also a fan, too, and so it's kind of like being a big game hunter. I don't want to go out there and shoot a little quail. You want to go out there and take out the biggest and the baddest. And so, putting names on your board, that's something you take with you when you retire. It's like, well, I fought this guy. I fought that guy. Win or lose, I stepped in there and I faced, the legends of our sport, So any of the other guys there, too, I mean, bringing up the light heavyweights made it interesting. I mean, a Quentin Jackson fight, that, or a King Mo, those guys are also have huge names. So even the light heavyweights that they brought up aren't, they're not easy fights for anybody. And two, there's still a lot of name draw behind that.
Most definitely. Frank Mir, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. Again, he will be one of the 8 participants in the Bellator MMA World Grand Prix 2018 tournament. The winner will be the heavyweight champion once the tournament concludes. All right, let me send it over to the boys at the Mandalay Bay. Goes and Dan, what do you have for Frank Mir?
Frank, I know Bellator chose to go with the staggered format, but had they chosen to maybe modify rules a little bit so that it could be a one-night tournament, similar to maybe what Combate America did, what would you have liked something like that?
Oh, 100%. I think my style, because I'm very much of a finisher. I mean, it's one of the records I kept at the UFC as a heavyweight. More first-round finishes than any other heavyweight. So that not having to grind someone wrestling style and win a 3-round decision over opponent after opponent, the fact I can go out there and smack someone's arm, and take it with me and end a fight in 2 or 3 minutes, whether it's a knockout, whether it's a submission, then it gains that much more momentum that I only fought for 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'm going to fight in a couple hours against a guy who, as a lot of heavyweights do, is either knock you out or they just lay on top of you for, the full 15 minutes. And so I personally always felt that I wish I would have born a little bit earlier, because the tournament format all in one night, I think, really fits my style of fighting, and I would do even better in that than just the staggered format.
A tournament is a big deal, especially for mixed martial artists having that on their resume. When they pitched this to you, can you talk a little bit about the pitch? Do you feel like you were one of the first names that they brought up, or did you come a little bit later? Like, what were some of the names that they gave you when they were pitching the idea?
This is exactly how it went down. Abe texted me, said, hey, can you call me if you're up? I was like, yeah, no problem. I was outside my bedroom. I had a little patio. I was smoking a cigar. I said, hey, what's up, man? He's like, hey, they need a headshot for you. You're going to be in this tournament, and these are the guys going to be in it. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, here you go.
Oh, wow. So they already
But
had
they know
all
me.
seven
I've
at that
never said
point.
no to a fight in my life. Well, they had a couple names. It was 4 names, I think, at the point. But again, nothing's confirmed with a lot of them yet. So it was one of those things where my management knows that. I mean, they could tell me Godzilla's waiting for me at the end of the week, and I'm just like, hey, so my red or blue corner. You know what I mean? Like,
What about one of the things that we brought up a little bit too was how you not only fight, you've done analyst work, you've also done broadcasting work, and one thing that amongst the hardcores for the longest time people have been saying, gotta be nice to get Frank Mir back in that booth. Has Bellator talked to you at all about possibly giving you some of those type of gigs?
no, actually, that was brought up because actually that was the time where I was still, with the ACB, extending my contract. So I asked them, like, hey, are you guys going to want me, to also do commentating? Should I take that into account? And at the time, the answer was no, they're all filled up. They're good to go. So I went ahead and just, I really have a commitment to the ACB on the commentating side. And also, hopefully, too, in between the fights of the Bellator, I'll be fighting for them also. It's really a great organization. I really have a lot of admiration for Merbach. And, I'm very happy to be a part of them. So far, I mean, if you want to watch me commentate on Fight TV, the app, you can check me out there as far as the foreseeable future.
I know you'll be in the finals, but who's the name that you think will be there with you?
It's hard to tell, man. The light heavyweight factor makes it so interesting because, I mean, Quentin left hook can knock out anybody if he catches you with it. And he's very good at grappling and wrestling. Also, too, Chael Sonnen has a style that very much suits that he can really he's not going to get thrown around. Like all the light heavyweights, Ryan Bader, that moved up, they're so good at the grappling aspect and they hit hard, too, that really they would do very well as a heavyweight. And then they have endurance and mobility on their side because they'll be carrying less weight. So it makes that part interesting. And then, Matt Mitrione, I think, has shown a lot of ability. The guy is, a very tall southpaw, that moves extremely well. He's probably one of the most athletic heavyweights in the world. You see how the guy is able to effortlessly move around. I think he has one of the best jabs in the heavyweight division. So I mean, we just go down the list. I mean, and then you can never count Roy Nelson out, man. That guy he's like he's a brick wall. He's hard to take down, and if he lands his right hand on you, man, anybody in the world goes to sleep.
Frank, first of all, I just want to say you're killing it over there with Richard Hunter. I really enjoyed the show you guys got for Phone Booth Fighting. And I was actually lucky.
Thanks, man.
Oh, no problem. I was lucky enough you guys actually invited me on one of your shows earlier this year. It was after that ACB event in California. And I bring that up because when I was talking to you there, fighting wasn't exactly on the table per se, but you could see that you were really lit up and excited to be calling fights. And like you touched earlier, how much breaking down film can help. And not just breaking down film or fighters in front of you, but you're getting to see fighters from different styles, what new is being brought to the table. Coupled with being a heavyweight, do you think, Frank, could you make the argument that this is actually a more dangerous Mir than the one we saw step in with Mark Hunt in Australia?
Oh, absolutely. I'm way more technical and knowledgeable even than I was then, and I've just grown in leaps and bounds because of my mind. But then I have to factor that in that I am getting older, so it's kind of this, that's one thing that I think some fighters don't do. They're not realistic about themselves. There's this almost like immortal type of, I'm invincible, I can walk through fire. And I mean, you have to be confident. But to me, as a strategist, if we're in battle, I have to know exactly what my military or what my army is capable of, its strengths and its weaknesses. And so that's what I'm doing now is I've become more aware of, you don't have to even be the better fighter to win. That's the one thing about MMA we see all the time. I see guys matched up all the time against guys that are better than them. On 9 out of 10 matches would beat them, but on that match they lost. And I've really taken that into account. Like, why does fights swing one direction or the other? In most sporting events, you know that if the number one team is facing the last place team, who's going to win, It's more consistent. Where MMA is just crazy. I mean, you can have guys that are unheard of going out there and knocking someone out that is a household name. So I've really started to just establish about it's really knowing yourself, knowing what you're capable of, knowing what your opponent's capable of, and then within that, having good strategy and game planning.
Frank, my last question is tied into one of our listeners. He wanted me to ask you, his name's Abel from Santa Ana, Cali Refrigeration. He says, Frank Mir is my favorite heavyweight. He wanted to know about the second Brock fight when you came in real lean versus when you bulked up for Shane Carwin. Could we possibly see the real lean version if you have to fight one of these light heavyweights that's coming up, or do you just prefer being whatever version you are? Are you more consistent now with your frame?
No, I'm actually looking forward to being lighter, and that's one thing that my wife and I in the last couple months focused on, and that's something I've just realized, again, strengths and weaknesses. I'm not when I get strong. You know, if I don't fight like that anyway, so it's almost like I'm like, I can be big and strong, go weight, but my brain, it doesn't mesh together. I'm not a bully in the ring. I'm more quick, agile, and mobile. So that's why actually now I'm going back just being on the lighter side, using strength. But how well it matches up to every single opponent, I always feel like I fight better, whether it's striking, whether it's grappling, when I'm around 250. That seems to be my ideal weight when I've looked back and been honest with myself about my performances. And you can't always sit there, too, and mark about, well, I won this fight or I lost this fight. Now, there's a lot of factors that win and lose, but if you're talking about what you feel comfortable with, well, how did you perform up to the point?
All right, folks. Frank Mir, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. He will be fighting in Bellator's World Grand Prix, where at the end, the new heavyweight champion will be crowned. Right now, they don't have a heavyweight champion, so we look forward to seeing the 8 participants go at it there. Frank, thank you very much for the time. We really, really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll see you. All right, folks, that is Frank Mir. Follow him on Twitter at @DFrankMir. And don't forget about the Phone Booth Fighting podcast along with Richard Hunter, dropping twice a week. You can subscribe on iTunes and also leave them a review. 5 stars.
Yes.
I know we appreciate it when we get it, so give them, because I've heard the show and it's worth 5 stars, so give it to them. It really does help out with that algorithm. That damn iTunes is so confusing at times. All right, folks, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to Dustin Poirier, winner at UFC Fight Night 120 in the main event. He defeated Anthony Pettis.
They're so fat they gave Dracula diabetes. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
Your favorite holiday music channels are back on SiriusXM. Check out Contemporary Holiday Favorites on Holly, Channel 70, and Holiday Traditions on Channel 4. You can get our complete lineup at SiriusXM.com/holiday. I want to thank Frank Mir for his time. Just hung up the phone with him. He'll be one of the 8 participants in the 2018 Bellator World Grand Prix tournament. Of course, the winner of that tournament will be the new heavyweight champion. They haven't had a champion since they stripped Vitaly Minakov. So that'll be huge for them. They need that. They now have Matt Mitrione, Frank Mir, Fedor Emelianenko, Roy Nelson under that banner. And then they're also bringing up some of them light heavyweights like Rampage Jackson, King Mo, Ryan Bader, and Chael Sonnen to compete for that belt. Also want to give a shout out to Logan Gonzalez and the Inland Valley Canes as they won the 14U championship 32-0. Logan Gonzalez got the MVP with 3 touchdowns. He got taken out in the third quarter. It may have been 6 touchdowns. But how about that, man? Making it to the finals of a football tournament and winning by the score of 32-0. Man, that's pretty dominant.
Who they play, the 49ers?
Let's talk to... Hey, the 49ers got to win, so back off. All right, let's talk to Dustin Poirier, who goes, man, this guy's like the funnest guy to talk to, but he's the easiest guy to book. And I shouldn't say this because now others will try and do it, but if I ask him to be on the show, he just sends me back, sure, you know? And I can't tell if he's going... Sure, like I got nothing better to do than to talk to your dumbass every 3 months, blah, blah, blah. Or if it's sure and he's really excited, I don't know. But I get excited to talk to him because he's an amazing fighter and he's been giving us some amazing fights these last few years. And last night did not come any short of that word amazing. Him and Anthony Pettis went at it. Dustin Poirier, however, had his hand raised, and he joins us now on MMA Junkie Radio. What's up, Dustin? How you doing?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us here on the show. What an amazing fight, man, against you and Anthony Pettis. And I know it's never fun to spill blood and to take lumps and bruises, but it genuinely looked like you were having the time of your life out there.
Yeah, man, no, that's fun to me. I like that. I enjoy that. I love those kind of fights, you know, where really you have to dig down and see who wants it more. That's what it came down to in that fight.
Mm-hmm. And Dustin, do you talk to yourself throughout the fight and remind yourself? You know, we heard Rose Namajunas. She had a mantra of what she would say to keep calm and remind her that she deserves to be there and she's going to win the fight. Throughout the fight, is it just the coaches talking to you, or do you remind yourself of the hard work or what this fight means to you and your family and anybody else that's along for the ride?
I mean, I definitely think about those things throughout training camp and stuff like that. But in the fight, I mean, I'm in go mode. I'm not thinking about that type of stuff. I'm just acting and fighting. I don't have to. Once I'm there and it's happening, I don't have to pump myself up or do anything like that. I'm just happy that it all came together and we're finally doing it.
If the tap out doesn't come, how do you think the fight would have ended? You had some dominant positions. You had bloodied them up, and it looked like some more ground and pound was on the way. But how do you think the fight would have played out anyway?
Honestly, man, I felt like he was getting softened up slowly, and when I mounted him, and I had a body triangle from the top position. So, I mean, there was no way he was going to get out of that, and I probably would have just started throwing elbows and ground and pound to the ref stopped it, honestly. He couldn't have got out of that body triangle. It was so tight from the top position. And, I think I would have finished him either way.
Now, nobody's taking away
10 minutes of fight left, you know?
Yeah, so. No doubt, man. No, that you guys were going at a high pace. I would have wanted to see those 10 minutes, but it got settled. But I do want to ask you this. Nobody's taking away from your win. It was a great win. Some people had a problem with the stand-up, and the reason they had a problem is because they felt like Anthony had a tight triangle. Can you explain at that time what you were feeling? I mean, you had escaped some other submissions, so I don't know that it's that automatic that just because he locked it in that you may be done.
That was the one.
But I do want to hear from you if you recall.
All those people who are upset probably live in Milwaukee or have an Anthony Pettis T-shirt. Fuck them, man.
All right, that answers that. Dustin Poirier, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. Goes and Dan, what do you have for the Diamond?
Dustin, none of you were, or neither one of you really seemed to be slowing down, even when the fight was getting ready to get called. Was that the best you've ever felt going into a fight? Was there anything in particular about this camp?
Going into this fight, the week of the fight, my wrestling heart rate was 42 beats per minute. I felt like I was in great shape. We pushed the pace and cardio, knowing that it possibly was going to be a 5-round fight. He's not an easy guy to finish, so I assumed we were going to battle it out for a while. And, my strength and conditioning coach, Phil Daru at American Top Team, we really put in the work, man. We got my weight down, so I wasn't cutting as much weight. Fight week, just in case we went to those later rounds, I felt really good.
Now that the dust is settled, I know a lot of times it takes a day or even a couple hours after the fight to really start to feel certain injuries or anything like that. How does your body feel now?
My neck is a little sore from getting out of that last triangle. He locked in a tight triangle. The tightest one of them all was maybe about 20 or 30 seconds left of one of the rounds of the second round, and I kind of had, there's a pass I do to get out of the triangle where I throw my head towards the lock and kind of sprawl over the body and circle my feet around. And when I did that, the triangle was so tight that my neck got put in a crazy position and it popped. And I didn't feel it after the fight, but now I feel it. And, I got bumps and bruises, my back, my ribs. He got to do a good body kick. One of them landed. He threw some elbows from top and also from bottom, but nothing serious. I'm good to go.
Dustin, first of all, thank you for yet another show-stealing fight. But I guess I wanted to ask about that triangle in particular, because I will say, looking into the fight, that's what made it so exciting, is that both you guys are so savvy, but both of you are also not afraid to, bait something to pass. And that's what was so impressive to me, is because Anthony is usually a master of letting the guy take his back and reversing him, but you were doing that to him on multiple occasions at key points, man. Who can you, if anybody, who can you credit your recent groundwork with? Because you've always had a great submission game before you went to American Top Team, but it seems like you just keep growing, man. Can you credit anybody to that in particular?
I used to have more of a pure jiu-jitsu style, but since I've been to American Top Team, Mike Brown has helped me round out my grappling for MMA so much more. I'm more of a top guy now. I give up less positions, chasing submissions, and he's a guy who's really dedicated and spent a lot of time perfecting a lot of things that I was doing wrong, and still to this day tightening up a lot of things. And he's an amazing coach and an amazing guy. Mike Brown is. But for Anthony Pettis, like you said, he had some slick setups when he went to that Kimura in the first round. He set it up real slick. I was trying to posture up and get out of a triangle, and he had one of my arms trapped, and I felt like he was trying to slide it over the lock in the triangle, and then he just completely switched to a Kimura, and I wasn't expecting that. So, he's a vet, man. The guy's been fighting a long time and fighting the best of the best, so I didn't expect anything less from him.
100%. I'm really glad you guys both got to show your chops down there as far as that part of the game goes. And my other question is, there was a lot of close quarter combat, and in that, there was a lot of blood exchanged on the shorts. Now, I see on Twitter, and you've always been pretty good about this, so I guess that's what I wanted to ask you. First of all, really appreciate the gestures of, auctioning off your gear for good causes, but can you maybe tell us a little bit about the current one you got going? And is this something you do after every fight, Dustin?
Yeah, it started with my last fight with Eddie Alvarez. I was just like, I'm just going to start trying to help people in my community with these fight kits, because I have a pile of them at my house, and I'm not doing anything with them. Like I said in another interview, the first couple, keeping gloves and hats and walkout shirts, was cool my first couple fights in the big show, but this was my 21st fight, so now I just have, it's getting gross. I have piles of stuff, and me and my wife were cleaning out the closet and getting ready to move, and we were like, what are we going to do with all this stuff? And we just came up with the idea to start auctioning it off. And when I do sell it, I'm going to try to help my immediate community here in Louisiana. But this last one is going to the family of a fallen officer here in Lafayette, Louisiana. He was killed in the line of duty last month on a regular call. He hopped out of his car to, go to a call at a gas station of somebody was making some noise and causing some trouble. And when he got out of his car, the guy shot him, man. And he left behind a wife and 3 daughters, and it's just terrible. It sucks to see. Yeah.
Wow. And folks, the way you can get to the link, it's available on eBay, is follow Dustin on Twitter at Dustin Poirier. It'll take you to a link on eBay where he's doing an auction, starting bid $3,000, or you can buy it right now, $5,000. Again, the proceeds will go to the family of this fallen police officer, and very commendable, Dustin, for you to do that. And I mean, how about the history on that, on those shorts, on those wraps? They get the gloves, they get the shirt. You know, there's a lot of Anthony Pettis DNA, some of yours. I mean, you guys went at it, man. Does this rank up there as one of your favorite fights ever? Maybe your number one fight ever?
It's definitely up there, man, because you know, being the main event and getting the win here was huge to me, and then also the way the fight went. Fight of the night. It was a bloodbath. It was you know, we both had to dig down. That's what I love, man. That's what I love about this sport. It's crazy, man. My last main event in Virginia, we put on maybe the fight of the year, people were saying, and I come back another main event and do something similar, so it's awesome. But that's the way I want my fights to be. That's why I accept fights with guys like this, because I'm excited to put on these kind of fights, man.
Can't wait for the next one. And I think you did the right thing. I like the winner of Gagey Alvarez, and then a title shot right after that. I think the timing makes sense, and I think you've earned it. Thank you very much for the time. We'll let you get back to family and spending some time in Lafayette, whatever you got on the agenda, but we appreciate you squeezing us here on MMA Junkie Radio.
Of course, man. Thanks.
Okay, take care. We'll see you, Dustin. All right, folks, there you have it. Give him a follow on Twitter, Dustin Poirier, and if you want to add that to your collection, all you hardcore MMA fans, again, man, I think you'll really dig it. He's putting it all out there. I saw the gloves, the wraps, you name it, it's there. I think that'd be one hell of a collector's item from one hell of a fight. Let's take one last call here before we bounce out on a Monday. It's Showtime in Tennessee. What's up, Showtime? It's yo time. Where's Showtime?
He's there.
Fellas.
Showtime?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What's up?
Nothing much. Had you guys on mute, actually. Great show as always, man. Great guys calling in here. Yeah, great show, man. Great fight this weekend. I'm just glad that we're going to have MMA, you know, the next month. Well, really, the next 6 weeks? We're going to pretty much have shows almost every week. Dude. Yeah. So, great show, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Poirier has become one of my favorites to have on the show, and it's just great to hear Frank's voice and us talk about, you know, potential matchups or whatever he's got going on. I mean, that'd be nice to write on his resume, Bellator champ and UFC champ. Not too many people can brag about that.
Oh yeah. Glad Frank's back in the game, too.
Yeah. All right, bud. All right, well, thanks for calling in.
Okay, guys.
All right, easy Showtime.
That was one of his quicker calls. Here, I thought I was going to have to interject and cut him off, but that's it. A man of not many words. All right, thanks to Frank Mir, and thank you to Dustin Poirier. Fist bump to Richard Hunter for lining up the Mir interview, and gotta thank myself, man. Not only am I fantastic at hosting the show, I lined up the Poirier interview. All right, big shout out to Danny Otto, always doing his thing, producing the show, doing stuff behind the scenes that you all don't know about. He's not underappreciated. We value him. We love him. And then, of course, Dan Tom, our latest addition, him and Goes, just keeping things afloat, man, over there. You guys are doing a great job. Miss you guys. I'm going to try and get in there very soon. All right, folks, we are out of here. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, be champions.
Vegas with your neon flashing and the one-arm bandits crashing. All those